Sometimes I meet with people. What are you looking for? What healing do you want? What are your growth intentions? And what are the places and the stories that you're most attracted to? And then I can help them plan a journey that they want to do on their own.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. My guest today is a very interesting man who I have been messing about a bit for now because we had a previous appointment and then we had to cancel. And I am so glad that he's here because we have a lot of interesting things to talk about. He is a psychotherapist and a healer and an international pilgrimage guide. The author of several books, out of which I think the latest is Passage to Boros. I don't know if it's the latest, but we will find out. And another thing that I'm really interested in is the healing power of immersing in sacred places. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Dr. Edward Tick.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm honored to be with you. And I love and affirm your topic, sacred journeys. Yes.
Let's start. One thing that we have in common, you are an international pilgrimage guide. I was a tour guide when I was young. I just accompanied tours all over the world. And I have started again a few years ago to do hiking tours to Greece.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So maybe we've met at Athens airport at some point. Who knows?
Maybe there, or maybe we've met on a mountaintop in Greece. Who knows? Because I also, when I did pilgrimage, we also did do hiking and sometimes mountain climbing. So I'm getting older, so it's harder. But yes, well, for example, last several years, as my book indicates, I have lived. I've guided pilgrimage all over Greece, but in the last several years, I've been uh, stationed on Poros and leading my pilgrimage from there. So some of our listeners might know Methana and the Methana volcano is right next door. And so part of our pilgrimage every year is to climb the volcano.
Wow.
And connected to the mythological stories. Is- You and I know, these listeners might not, volcano in Greek is Hephaestion, named after the god of the forge, Hephaestus.
Yeah.
So we don't only climb the volcano and do immerse in the wonderful nature that Greece offers, but we also especially study the gods and the goddesses, how they manifested, how they're related to our lives. And so when we're climbing the volcano, we're also meditating and praying to the powers that Hephaestus represents, as well as climbing a volcano. In my book, I do present an episode from one of my journeys where I had a very disabled man. He's an amazing man. He was born with one of the most rare forms of birth defects. So he's had 23 operations to put his body back together. This is what's relevant to our talk and to sacred journeys. When he decided to come to Greece, he didn't know, but as he was studying with me, oh, there's a disabled God. Oh, I was born disabled, and I didn't know that perfect God could also be disabled and imperfect. So he's my God. So we studied the myths of Hephaestus. We climbed the volcano, and even with his disability, we put him in front of the group. So he led the way up. And when we were on top, he prayed to Hephaestus. He declared the disabled God is my God. And it was so beautiful. I can cry just remembering it. At that point on the volcano's rim and into the cone, he opened his arms wide to the universe and he declared, I love my disability. I love it. I'm proud to be a disabled person. And now I know my life's purpose, my mira, my destiny, and that is to be an advocate for disability rights. So there's a purpose that I'm here, and it's a divine purpose. And now, through the Greek mythology, I've got a divine connection.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. Tell me something. Do you do only pilgrimage tours to Greece or to other countries?
Oh, thank you. That's a wonderful question because that opens up the other half of my work. So I am what do we call a subject matter expert in the Greek tradition and the use of ancient Greece and all of the Greek teachings and mythology for holistic healing. And so I've been leading sacred pilgrimage to Greece since 1995. I was there myself several times before. I'm older than I look. Um, so are you, probably, but we won't go there. um,
Don't say.
no, don't. It's okay. We're young in spirit. So I've led about I do it annually and when I'm lucky twice a year. So about 25 sacred journeys to Greece. In addition to that, that's one of my specialties. And in the Greek tradition, I especially study and practice uh, Asclepian dream incubation, the origins of medicine and psychology in the Western world. So one of my my that is also in my books on Greece, including Poros, because I do incubations on Poros and I report them in this book. In addition to that, I am also a subject matter expert in healing the invisible wounds of war, so post-traumatic stress disorder and moral injury. And several of my books are also on that. Two notable books are War and the Soul and Warrior's Return. And so I have been rather influential in that field. And so, in addition to pilgrimage, sacred journeys in Greece, I have been leading pilgrimage back to Vietnam. I began
Wow.
that I began that in 2000 and continued all the way until the pandemic stopped it. So I haven't been back in a few years. But so I've led 25 pilgrimages to Greece and 19 to Vietnam. And it's extraordinary bringing American veterans with their severe psychological and spiritual suffering to Vietnam that has had no form of resolution and healing in the United States. Um, Mostly, drugs, pharmaceuticals to control symptoms, but not healing. Veterans heal more in 2 or 3 weeks back in Vietnam on sacred pilgrimage than in the 40, 50 years since the war.
Oh my
So
God. This is,
yeah, I just want to, so I really, I practice pilgrimage. You lead pilgrimage also. People have asked, some people, more conventional psychological people have said, yeah, but that's pilgrimage, but it's not therapy. And I said, oh, of course it is. If you want me to explain it in clinical terms, we call it immersion therapy. Same thing,
mhm.
except pilgrimage gives it the sacred theme that the clinical frame doesn't provide.
Oh my God. There's a lot in what you just said, because first of all, the thing about therapy, even when I was a young tour guide in my 20s and I used to take people all over the place, some of those people who were lonely or who had just maybe lost somebody, and they trusted in me, even though I was a very young person, but they told me their story. And I'm sure for them that was therapy, even though I had absolutely no qualification whatsoever as to psychology. But sometimes people just need somebody to listen to them.
The only way I would edit your statement would be to say always. We always need to be heard. We always need to be listened to. We all need our stories witnessed. And storytelling is as old as humanity. Uh, and so I would say storytelling and back to the Greek tradition, Socratic dialogue and storytelling and the Asclepius dream healing tradition are really the origins of psychology and psychiatry in the Western world, though they're not given enough credit. But absolutely. Uh, I'll also connect your tour guide to the Greek tradition because, well, Hermes was the guide of souls. Hermes was the communicator. Hermes was the god of travel.
Hmm.
And so you were actually representing that archetype to people, guiding their souls through the journeys, even if you didn't talk about it that way. And people would spontaneously and deeply trust you
Hmm.
for more guidance than just the land journey. Um,
And coming back to storytelling, because I trained as a hypnotherapist in later life, and that's storytelling. Dr. Erickson was telling stories. That's what we did what he did with his patients, and it's
okay. Mhm.
miracle healing.
It is, and, in your art, um, using hypnotherapy to get people into their deep psyche where the stories still reside, but for whatever reasons, consciousness is suppressed of them or blocked them. That liberates the stories that have been locked inside us. And when that happens, yes, we can explode in new growth.
So, how did this start? How did you decide to do pilgrimages? You said you had been to Greece before, but many people have been to Greece before. That doesn't mean that everybody is going to go on a pilgrimage tour. So, what made you do it?
Ah, well, it's actually a life story. Um, I grew up in New York City. Uh, Back then, when one turned 10 years old, they could get their adult library card. And I'm a reader. So after school on my 10th birthday, I raced to the library. I got my card. I went to the adult section, and there were towering floor to ceiling bookshelves. I had no idea what's the first adult book I'm going to take home with me and read. I was between two ceiling high bookshelves, and I don't know what happened. It was like a god, something mysterious pushed a book off a top shelf and it fell into my hands. It was a beautiful red leather hardbound edition. I looked down and it was the Iliad.
Oh my God.
That's what I thought. Oh my God. How did you get here? Why did you fall in my hands? And I don't know who you are, but I'm going to take you. We're going home together. So at 10 years old, I read the Iliad and I fell in love with the Greek tradition and Greek mythology. And I began studying it from then. So serious, and I don't have any Greek blood, but it's Greek spirit in me. So since I've been Philellen my whole life, since I met Homer at 10 years old. Okay. Uh, and so I've been studying the tradition, but I was not able to get to Greece until actually my honeymoon. My wife, we were making our marriage plans, and my wife said, "So have you thought about?" And I knew the rest of the sentences where you want to go on honeymoon. But as soon as she said the first few words, I just blurted Greece. And she's, "Oh, wonderful. Beautiful beaches, swim in the ocean, good food and wine." And I said, "Well, honey, we'll do some of that, but no, we're going on a sacred journey." I've been studying and in love with this tradition my whole life. So there are places I need to go and need to see, and it can help make our marriage even stronger and more sacred.
Let me interrupt you for a minute here. You can have wine and good food on a sacred journey.
Yes, you can. In fact, it tastes even better.
Exactly. Go on.
Oh, I have my travelers, give prayer and pour libations before our dinners together. So, yes. And symposium, of course, is in the Greek tradition. This sacred conversation over good food and wine. Not to get drunk, but to get very loose and open and allow uh, the energy's free expression. Okay. So we went to Greece in 1984, then for my honeymoon. I went on a solo journey in 1987, and this is also related to my work with veterans and the military. Uh, Studying the Greek tradition, I certainly know the Greek warrior tradition. I know and affirm that the tragedies were all written by and for combat veterans. Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides were all combat veterans. Aeschylus was in the front lines, what we call the grunts, the front lines in the worst of the battles. Sophocles and Euripides were both um, elected generals in the Athenian army, and most of the tragedies are about war and its aftermath. And they display, Homer displays it, the tragedies display it. What we call post traumatic stress disorder today was quite well known and documented in the Greek tradition and the way to heal it, including through tragic performances. Huge communal ritual for everyone to view the pain, to experience it together, and to achieve catharsis. And I had that experience myself in 1987. So anyway, so I knew the tradition and I knew that it offered these healing opportunities. Okay. In 1987, because of this and my work with veterans, and I was looking for spiritual and holistic practices for healing veterans. And I said, the Greeks had such a powerful and important warrior tradition. Well, they're not all broken and crazy with PTSD, yet their battles were horrific. So what did they do? How did they handle it? How did they heal? And so in 1987, I went on a solo pilgrimage to Greece to study the ancient warrior tradition and what we could learn from it to help our veterans today. Among other things, that was an extraordinary sacred journey for me, and I had really some miraculous experiences. One of them was that I happened to be there at the opening night of the Ancient Theater Festival at Epidaurus, as it's spelled, Epidaurus.
Well, in Greek, it's epidavros, but yes, it's good enough.
Epidaurus. I often say Epidaurus to teach non-Greek speakers how to recognize the word and what it means and the right way to pronounce it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So I went to a Epidaurus for the opening night of the theater festival that year, and oh my goodness, talk about help from the spirit. The play and performance was Troades, the Trojan Women,
Amazing.
maybe the greatest anti-war play ever written. I sat in the very front row, right in front of the actors and actresses, and among other things, Hecate, the Queen of Troy, she screams her anguish at all the losses. She lost her husband, she lost her sons, she lost her city. They were going to they murdered her, the last surviving child. And she screamed from the core of her being, anathema, 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 anathema. That penetrated my soul the way tragedy is supposed to. I had been working with war veterans for about 10 or 12 years by that time, and none of the conventional psychological presentations about war trauma really went to the essence and the soul wound. I now translate PTSD as post traumatic soul distress and social disorder. It's not
Mhm.
just a neurological condition. And I felt that there. So I went into that play thinking of myself as a psychotherapist for Vietnam veterans, trying to do the best I could. Thank you. Euripides and Hecate changed my life because I realized then and there that war itself is an archetype that is always repeating in the human condition until we're way more spiritually mature anyway. And that it wasn't the Vietnam War that I was treating, it was all war from all times and all places whenever it crossed my path. And that my larger Mira, my destiny was to be a war trauma healer, not just a therapist for Vietnam veterans. And so I've been doing it ever since. And but I work with veterans from every American war. I also my book Warriors Return is also translated into Russian and Ukrainian, and so I'm working by Zoom with both of those countries. I could go on and on with about that, but that experience in the theater was life changing for me. And I also woke up and said, well, if it can do this for me, it can do this for our veterans, and we can bring their wounds here to immerse in the Greek tradition in this way. And I also, at the time, had been thinking about uh, leading healing journeys to Vietnam for immersion, for reconciliation with the Vietnamese people, for mutual forgiveness and understanding and healing. And so, so that was 1987. So based on those experiences and my further studies, I led my first journey to Greece in 1995. And I did that for 5 years, uh, uh, learning how to lead sacred pilgrimage that was, as we both understand, more than a tour, but a real therapeutic and spiritual immersion. And then in 2000, after that 5 years of experience doing it in Greece, I also began leading journeys to Vietnam. For again, with the same goal of deep immersion into the culture and the tradition and the people, and especially in Vietnam, meeting the people against whom we fought and reconciling and entering into a brotherhood and sisterhood that we're all in this together.
That is beautiful. I wonder, did you ever have people with you who, because sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. Did you have people who had like a real down, when it started, when the trip started, especially in Vietnam, I can imagine. I mean, obviously they had chosen to come with you, so that was already, a given, but still, I mean, there is one thing to talk about it and to plan it, but then to actually be there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a sensitive question, and you're right. Um, s- uh, Going to Vietnam, I travel with the groups because I do expect the difficulty and the triggering that you're expressing. So, a few times veterans broke down on the plane going over, terrified, crying, expressing, well, their what we now call moral injury. I am responsible for so many deaths. I know the Vietnamese police are going to be waiting for me at the airport to put me away. So sometimes on the way over, um, and certainly when we're in Vietnam, and especially at the places where they fought, I do expect um, people to crash and fall deeply into their pain. And actually, that's a goal. Just like going to attending a Greek tragedy for the goal of achieving catharsis. Catharsis, we both know, is the surfacing of the negative emotions, according to Aristotle, especially pity and fear, that have been accumulating in us and are making us ill. And so we actually want people to have the opportunity to safely and in a loving community fall apart, to fall into their own depths, so we can hold them and witness the stories and release the toxic emotion that has been stored there for so long, and then uh, reconstitute their psyches in a much more positive and liberated way. So, yes, I expect breakdown. Yes, I'm okay with it. Yes, I don't try to avoid it, but I nurture it as in the Greek tradition again, the descent into the underworld, the necessary descent into the underworld in order to reemerge again reborn.
Fantastic. Really, I mean, this is, how many people can you handle? How big are your groups?
Oh, I keep them small because they have to be, very personal, of course.
Mhm.
So, well, in Vietnam, it's sometimes been bigger. It's been up to, I don't know, 15 or 18. And not always, but often veterans, if they're still married,
Mhm.
they have spouses. And the spouses want to be there. They have their wounds also. And they certainly want to support their loved one and also witness what they went through.
Mhm.
In Greece, I keep my groups 12 people maximum. 8 to 10 is ideal. Therapeutically, small group is eight, and larger than 8 people in a group, it starts to become a crowd rather than an intimate small group. So I'm really expecting to do intensive personal work with everybody, and I want it to be a transformational healing journey. And so I purposely keep the groups small so we can be very intimate with each other and do really intensive group work together as we travel.
You were saying something before when we started about, Vietnam veterans or many veterans who never really had an opportunity to heal because the pharmaceutical industry, prefers to give them a pill. And it's one of my sort of things that I dislike. There's always a pill for everything, isn't there? You can have, if but here in Cyprus as well, when you go to a doctor, No doctor ever asks you about your lifestyle. They don't ask you, do you walk? What do you eat? How do you sleep? The first thing that I see is just picking up that pad and write the prescription. What's your take on that?
That it's horrible, that it's actually a betrayal of medicine and its origins. Hippocrates, bless him, whom we call the first scientific physician or the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates was the son and the grandson of Asclepian priests. He grew up in the dream healing sanctuaries. What he did, he didn't invent medicine, though some medical doctors have told me that. They actually said there was no medicine before Hippocrates. What? Humanity wouldn't have survived. Of course there was. So the Asclepian tradition dates to, we have records back to 1500 BC. Right, Hippocrates is about 400. So 1,000 years later, he studied the dream tradition and translated it into scientific terms. Regarding drugs, he said, leave your drugs in the chemist's pot and make your food your medicine,
Mm-hmm.
your medicine your food. That's one of the many ways that we're betraying the foundational principles of medicine. Hippocrates was basically a naturopath. Walk, take baths, swim, do gymnastics, have a really healthy diet, and consult with people like me for good health practices, not throwing pills at people. Another problem with the pharmaceuticals is, I don't know if this is happening in the Mediterranean world right now, but in the US, psychedelics and mind-altering drugs are being legalized to be used as a therapeutic tool. People by the thousands and thousands are flocking to that. Why? Because it's easy.
Of course.
You want a spiritual experience? Well, pop a pill and go on a trip. And the medical system is taking over the prescription of material that used to be the realm of shamans and medicine people and used only with great care in ritual context with experienced guides. So we're not doing any of that. And so, uh, and medicine or healing is individualistic, but pharmaceuticals say, one size fits all. This pill takes care of all these symptoms. And it's also works toward helping people reduce their symptoms so that they can function. It doesn't heal them. They're dependent on the medication for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible through all kinds of journeying and other experiences and through natural ways of healing to achieve spiritual experiences and to achieve profound holistic healing.
Excellent. I have a note here that I made before we started, and it's I want to talk about the healing power of immersing in sacred places. And it reminded me of Lourdes. My grandmother used to go to Lourdes on a train. And I think she more went for fun because she was playing cards on the train and they had a good time. But it has always fascinated me because the miracles that happen in Lourdes, and I know that these miracles happen in other places. So this is what you mean with the healing power of immersing in sacred places. What happens in somebody's brain when this happens? How does this work?
Well, in English, we have the phrase, I changed my mind. And people usually mean that as, uh, now I understand something differently and I've got a different idea. No, that's a surface level of the meaning of that phrase. What we're really working toward is changing the mind, changing the psyche. And you and I know, we want our audience to know, psyche means soul. It doesn't mean mind. And logi comes from logos. That doesn't mean to study. It means the order and meaning of things. So psychology really, if we translated it accurately and spiritually, it's the order and meaning of the soul. And that's what we wish to restore. Okay. So when we practice immersion, and especially in cultures that have sacred foundation, like Greece does and like Vietnam does, so they're different. Buddhism and Confucianism on one hand, and uh, paganism and polytheism on the other, but nature spirituality. Still, they're profoundly different than the Western world way, profoundly different than the way people have been raised. And so when we immerse, it's not just traveling to the different places, but it's being in the culture, with the people, with the language, with the spirit that people carry, and letting that spirit and the imagery fully penetrate us. Carl Jung said uh, that greatest challenge we have in modern times is that the archetypes have all dried up. We don't nurture and feed the archetypes anymore. Well, that's correct. So if we have a plant that's dried up and dying from lack of water, what do we do? Well, water it. So an immersion journey is watering the archetypes. The Greek gods and goddesses are the archetypes of our psyches. We're not worshiping beings that are on a mountaintop. Those are representations of what I call the God powers, the divine powers that are in us. So when we study the myths, we go to the places they happened. We study the history. We experience them ourselves. We see what's being revealed in our dreams and in other synchronistic experiences like climbing the volcano. We're literally changing our minds because we're changing the flow of imagery that is our mind. So our connection to the imagery, the flow of imagery, the awakening of the archetypes in us literally changes the mind, changes the soul, and opens up us up to depths of wisdom and experience that we don't even know exist until we experience it.
Yeah, and I think mindfulness is a modern word that has been thrown around or is being thrown around. And I think it's a lot more than we think it is because
Yeah.
doing things mindfully, everything, we can do everything mindfully. We can have a cup of coffee mindfully. And I think mindfulness is a very, very big deal. And we should all be more mindful. But I was thinking while you were talking, I was thinking now, not everybody can go on these tours with Dr. Edward Tick. People, you only take 12 and you only go to Greece or to Vietnam. If somebody wants, for example, to say, okay, I want to go on my own. I obviously won't be accompanied by somebody professional, but I'd like to do this. What would you do? What would you recommend that this person to do? It was just an idea that came to my mind.
I'm with you. It's an important question, and for so many reasons, people can't or won't go with me or you or be able to afford
Mhm.
pilgrimage. So a person can certainly go on their own, and I've coached people on how to do that. So sometimes I meet with people. What are you looking for? What healing do you want? What are your growth intentions? And what are the places and the stories that you're most attracted to? And then I can help them plan a journey that they want to do on their own. That's one matter. But I would say there's something even much more immediate, and that is just as you rightly say, we can be mindful anywhere all the time. You can you can go on your own pilgrimage at home,
This is true.
right? Read the books that are in the tradition you're interested in. Immerse yourself in the stories and the images from that tradition. Read the books, look at the artwork, watch your dreams, and watch. Go to attend theater, watch movies in the tradition. I have my travelers. I'm going back in March, and right now my travelers are reading and studying the tragedies and watching them on YouTube and really immersing in the tradition for 6 months before we go. So they're already on the pilgrimage, but a person can do that themselves and watch the way their own dream imagery changes. Uh, keep a dream journal. Watch for strange synchronistic events like like the book falling into my
Yes.
hand.
Yes.
How and why did that happen? And take it seriously because, again, from Carl Jung, synchronicities keep happening in our lives. And from you, be mindful and see that they're happening. Don't ignore them. Something is going on. The universe is talking to you. And so pay attention to the synchronicities and do your best to understand what came to you. And then finally, one can practice dream incubation at home as well. You don't have to go to Greece and go to an ancient Asclepian site. You can take a weekend off, turn off your phone, turn off your computer, fast and pray and meditate and create an altar and light a candle and write the questions you have and put them under your pillow and lay down and just lay there and meditate and dream and pray and wait for visions and watch for what happens. So from doing it yourself at home, extending that to all kinds of ways to going on a world journey, people can do this themselves. And it doesn't have to be with a guide, though being on a pilgrimage with an experienced guide and a fellow travelers is helpful, but not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But the practices are necessary.
So just I will put your website in the show notes so somebody could actually contact you and, have coaching session with you if they want to go somewhere, and you could help them, as you said, give them pointers, tell them what to watch and what are you looking for? What did you, how do you want to grow? So you would be doing that online, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Listen, we're coming to the end. This has been very fascinating and I have really enjoyed it. And I wish you so many more beautiful trips. I wish I could come with you. Maybe I'll come with you one day. And
Maybe we can do that. Maybe I can get my groups to Cyprus to meet you there too.
that's a good, and I'll take them on a hike.
Wonderful.
And also, I think the people who are traveling with you are very, very lucky because it's important. I wanted to say something before. I was already doing this goodbye speech now, but I also wanted to add something to what you said before. I think intuition. I think many people have lost to actually listen to ourselves because there's so much noise around us.
Yes, and the more noise, the less we're able to quiet ourselves and listen internally. But I support and applaud what you said. Uh, we live in a world that is utterly dominated by the rational and the technological. That's only half of us. What do we say? That's left brain. Think right, right brain, intuition and imagination. They are equally important, and the ancients also testified to this. Reason and vision are both necessary and co-equal. So we have reduced and denigrated the importance of intuition and imagination, but they're actually spiritual functions that we absolutely need to be whole and to achieve growth and healing. So yeah, pay attention to your dreams and your visions and your unusual experiences and listen to your intuition. Trust your heart and trust your gut. Don't just try to live rationally.
I think that's a perfect ending to this podcast episode. Thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys today, Dr. Edward Tick.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, and blessed journeys to you.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.